What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Corvette Weekly. Today we're here with Brandon from Brandon's Garage, right there. I figured I'd change it up a little bit. Normally, this is supposed to be just a by myself kind of live, but I figured I haven't had Brandon on here by himself before, so we're gonna, just kind of always try to change these things up, keep it interesting. So, anyway, I'm here in Florida. If you can't tell, I'm at my townhouse. So this is why I just put out the video a couple days ago for the Supercar Saturday. I'm here in the Fort Lauderdale area. But anyway, welcome to Corvette Weekly. Again, this is the show where we discuss everything and anything Corvette, whether it is maintenance items, ownership experiences, problems, news, future things coming. Everything gets discussed here. And we have a lot to talk about tonight with the Zora, the Corvette Zora. So Brandon and I were just talking off screen about how we kind of predicted on this show, actually, about, I don't know, about 6 months ago or so, that the ZR1 and the Zora might be closer linked than you think. And there's some proof tonight that shows that that might actually be the case. And it's something we discussed live on this channel here before anybody was really talking about that being an option. And we're going to go over why I believe this is something that could possibly be coming down the line. So before we do, though, guys, you guys know the drill. The NCM Insurance is the sponsor of the Corvette Weekly show. So check out NCM Insurance in the description down below. When you're running through the process of figuring out your insurance rates, make sure on step number 5 that you put in you heard about us from HPO or Horsepower Obsessed. That will get you the best possible rate. And I've seen the difference. It will save you money if you put my name in there. So make sure you do that. You guys want to save as much money as possible on your car insurance. But another thing I want to mention really quickly is something that has just popped up, and that is the ability to win, win a C8 Corvette ZR1. Yeah. So you guys are probably like, well, what the heck, Justin? This car's not even out yet, but you can actually win it. So head into the description again down below. You can win this ZR1 before they're even available. So you want to get one of these things ASAP, this is the way to do it. Now, as usual, this particular one, you're going to get 20% extra entries just for clicking that link in the description down below. And this is the car you're going to get. It is the ZR1 with the ZTK performance package plus 30 grand. Now, if this car isn't exactly the spec you want, guess what? There's another one being given away. Another C8 ZR1. Both of these are in the description down below, so check them out. If you'd rather have a torch red ZR1 with the ZTK performance package, you can do that too. This one, however, is 50% extra bonus entries if you click that link. Either way, I honestly, if I were you, I would enter for both because it's a ZR1 and you could potentially win this thing, be one of the first ones with the car, and you didn't even pay for it. Check out the links in the description down below, guys. Anyway, moving on. We got a lot to talk about tonight. Like I said, lots of Zora information that has popped up. A lot of ZR1 stuff. Like I said, me and Brian were just talking about it off camera, kind of talking about, how this car is going to put the power down, all this good stuff. And there's actually some information that's come up about that as well. But let's say hi to some of the people in the chat here. Amber's in the house. That's good. Hi, Amber. 10 Seconds Z06 says, I just got home from Ripon after work. Love this car. So he's still very much so in love with the Z06. Of course, I understand that. I'm a big fan myself.
Hey, Justin, I don't know if 10 Seconds 06 wants to put this out there or not, but maybe he'll put it in the comments. I'm not going to say it just in case he wants to keep it on the wraps, but he had some fun this last couple of weeks with his car, had some interesting encounters. So maybe he'll put them on there if he does, and we'll talk about them.
Yeah, 10 second Z06. I almost said Eclipse again. Let me know what that fun might have been. RC Bizzle says, went through the NCM insurance process and never heard a word back, included the referral note reflecting HPO, sharing for awareness. RC, I will tell you, they are super overwhelmed with the amount of people that have been submitting leads. So if I were you, I would either submit another one or just basically send them an email with a gentle nudge, letting them know that, hey, I'm still waiting for this. You're definitely going to want to check out the insurance rate through them, though. So I think it's well worth doing that little nudge to get them moving. Says, finally watching live. Love this podcast. I have a 24 Z06 with the Z07 package. My dream car. And I'm something. It cut it off. It looks like. What's up, D? Uh, Insurance on the ZR1 is going to be very high, possibly so high that it doesn't actually insure some cars, from what I've heard. Some insurance companies aren't going to insure the car, period, from what I've heard. Um, Hopefully your insurance company, like whoever you guys have, is not one of them, but stay tuned. Let's see. Red C8 Z06 is in the house. Kevin Horan says my friend had a head-on crash with her C7. The cockpit saved her. Wow. Ouch.
Just kind of piggybacking off of that, when I had my C7 Callaway, I had drag radials, Toyo drag radials on it. They were less than 50%. I'd driven in the rain probably 100 times and had no issues. The second they got like kind of to the wear point on the drag radials, I was on the interstate, hit like a monsoon, slowed down almost instantly. Before I could even do anything else, next thing I know, the back end's coming around. I tried to counter, I couldn't, and it just car just completely went off. Slid into they had the beams that are like the metal, I guess they're basically like bars. I hit those with the car. It hit every corner of the car. The cockpit saved me. I didn't have any injury. I had like a seatbelt sign, those kind of things. But the C7 actually was really good in the accident that I had. So I was really impressed with like the design of the cars from a crash perspective.
Hmm. I didn't know you had a C7. It was a Callaway.
Yeah, it was a 2014. It was that red. It was like the one you see on the catalog, like the red with the yellow calipers. It was that exact spec.
Huh.
It was an automatic though. The one I had, it was the 6 speed before they went to the 8 speed. It was a 2014.
So 10-second, I almost did it again. 10-second Z06 says he's pulled over twice, 5 warnings, and a ticket for 85 and a 40, $530 fine, and 5 points. Oh my God, dude. That is a heck of a weekend. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, that's insane. Five
yeah,
warnings.
yeah. He was telling me he was passing somebody, and then I guess one of the times he was passing, and the cop clocked him after he passed, and I think another time he was passing someone, and the cop kind of they didn't pull out and get him. I don't think they actually gave him a warning at that point, but sounds like he's been really tearing the pavement up. I don't know if his tires are. He's probably gonna need tires in the next month or two.
That's awesome though. The Z06 is meant to be driven. And
Yeah.
honestly, a lot of times whenever I'm driving the Z06 and anybody out there driving the Z06, you're going to drive it a little harder than you probably should most of the time. So I'm not super surprised.
Did you see his clip where he did the burnout, or not burnout, but just the launch on it? I don't know if you saw that on
Yeah.
Instagram or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen all those. He typically tags me in them, so all right, so we're getting a lot of questions in the comment section here for the ZR1 and the Zora, and as far as what I think the price might be and all that good stuff. So let's start off with what I think the price will be, and then we'll see what Brandon thinks the price is going to start at for the ZR1. So I personally think the ZR1 is going to start a little bit higher than what most people are estimating. Some are saying between 140, 150. I think it's going to be 160 plus. And I honestly, for some reason, the number 180, 189 sticks in my head for some reason. I think it's going to be right around 190 to start. Maybe even 199. So I'm somewhere. I know that's kind of a pretty wide gap, but I'm for some reason I'm feeling like this car is going to be pricier than most people are thinking. So I'm going to say 189 is where I'm thinking this car is going to start. What do you think, Brandon?
Right on that 190 to 200. I think if they hit the 189.9, that kind of gets them
Yeah,
a little, makes it look a little better. So I
right.
think that might be the actual number they come in for MSRP. That's my guess. For
Perfect.
that's for base. I think that's where it's
Yeah.
going to start.
That's exactly what I'm thinking too. So we're on the same page there. We did a poll last week on what we think the price was going to be, and a lot of you guys were between like 160 to 180. I personally think 189.9 is one of those numbers, just like Brandon said, that it sticks in my head because on paper it looks good. On paper, it's hey, that's less than 200 to start, but really it's basically 200. So I feel like that's going to be starting price for the ZR1. And yes, I heard somebody already in the comment section, Red C8 said the same thing that I'm going to reiterate here is that Taj himself said the C8 ZR1 is going to be the most expensive C8 Corvette performance variant offered. So none of the performance variants coming after the ZR1 are going to be more expensive, which leads us to believe, or leads us to question, How the heck is the ZR1 going to exist? How do we add a hybrid motor to the ZR1 powertrain without increasing cost? Well, if you guys are familiar with the channel and you've watched the live video here, I was actually on here with Brandon and David about 6 to 8 months ago, whenever I said, just off the top of my head, just out of the blue, hey, what about the ZR1? What happens if the Zora package was a check option for the ZR1? There's just go in there, it's a performance checkbox that you add the hybrid setup in the front, and now all of a sudden it's a ZR1 Zora. And everybody liked that idea and kind of ran with it, and it was just something off the top of my head. And now we're starting to see that that might actually be exactly what this car ends up doing, because that would still mean that the ZR1 is still the highest priced performance variant, because it's still the ZR1 just with a Zora package. So it doesn't actually become its own car. It's more of a performance tuned package. Now, we've talked about this a lot since I mentioned it in that video, because people seem to really gravitate towards that as being a possibility. But we got some recent pictures from the Nürburgring that almost confirms this. Now, I say almost because there's still one slight thing that's not 100%. So I don't want to say that any of this is confirmed, but it's pretty close at this point. So I'm going to show you some pictures here. So over at the Nürburgring right now, we already had seen, if you watched the previous video I put out, that the Zora is at the Nürburgring testing, but we hadn't seen any ZR1s yet. Now we have. And number one, look at this thing. I think that that flag decal right in the middle of that hood is absolutely gorgeous. I would 100% do that. I love the blacked out flag look on that like swooping part of the hood. I think that is fantastic looking. But anyway, the ZR1's there testing alongside the Zoras. Now you can tell the ZR1 between the Zoras, because the Zoras are still wrapped in camo, whereas the ZR1 is obviously not. So behind the ZR1, well, we got to touch on these exhaust tips again. I think these exhaust tips are hilarious, because these are only on here to make sure that the sound levels of the ring aren't violated. And what the exhaust tips are is basically a mini muffler. You can actually see the canister part of the muffler, and then the tips also aim down to project the sound down into the ground versus back out, where the guy that could flag you would be. So they're 4 mini mufflers off of the actual tips. I think that's funny. But anyway, behind the ZR1, you can see in this photo here, there is 3 Zoras behind it and 1 Zora beside it. You can tell the Zoras because they're still in camo wrap, whereas the ZR1 is not. Now, the car closest to the camera in this shot, and I'm going to see if I can zoom in on this. Zoom a little bit. So the car closest to the camera down the bottom left-hand corner, you can pretty clearly see the side-mounted throttle bodies. So obviously the throttle bodies on the Stingray, or the throttle body on the Stingray, and the throttle bodies on the Z06 are almost invisible from this angle. But on the ZR1 engine, you can see them because they're side-mounted. You can see it in this picture right here. That is a Zora sitting there with a ZR1 engine in the rear, and we know it's a Zora because it's under camo wrap. So that car is a Zora with the ZR1 engine in the back. So how do we make that car, a Zora car, cheaper than a ZR1 by adding the hybrid up front? You don't. The hybrid motor is going to add cost to that car no matter how you cut it. It's got to be a check option. It's got to be a performance option that you're going to check whenever you're building the car, most likely starting in 2026. So 2025 is going to be the first year for the ZR1. 2026 is probably going to be the first year for the Zora, and it's very likely to be a check option on a ZR1 starting in 2026. What do you guys think about this? I know it's difficult to understand, or really put it into perspective why GM would do it this way, but the more you think about it and the more things start to make sense here, because a ZR1 was already kind of Zora's thing. So why make a totally separate car that now dethrones the king and costs more? Why not make it part of the same car? And I think that's what they're doing here. So it's almost, that's why I said it's almost confirmed. I don't want to say confirmed because nothing's ever confirmed with Chevy, it seems. But seeing those side mounted throttle bodies on a Zora car at the ring tells me this has to be a performance checkbox because there's no way to do it cheaper than the ZR1. I mean, it would make no sense to add parts to a ZR1 and then also have it be cheaper. What do you guys think? What do you think, Brandon?
I think you're right on. That's the only thing that at this point actually makes sense, is to be a checkbox option. The only thing I will say is that obviously they're going to probably run into trouble with they got extra weight now. You're going to add 300
Right.
pounds to the car.
Yep.
Are they going to use the same exact E-Ray driveline? Are they going to use the same front motor, same battery pack, which is going to add the weight? And on top of that, you're going to have a 50 horsepower output at 100 mile an hour. So you're going to have diminishing returns. And then is that car going to be faster around a track than the current ZR1, which I would think it would be track dependent. Track with big straightaways, that maybe that there would be an advantage to that. With short turns or something where you need that. You don't need more torque than what that motor makes already. The LT7 makes 800 foot-pounds of torque at 6,000 RPM. So the benefit, I just don't see it being at like every track is that being the dominant car, the Zora option. I think the Zora option is dominant at certain scenarios, but not all scenarios. So for that reason, I think you're probably right on. That's the only thing that actually makes sense for it to actually be, if we're going to go off of what Taz says, where he says
Yeah.
that's the max price option. If the ZR1 is going to be the most expensive Corvette, the only way that that makes sense is for them to do that, because you saw right there, it's not the LT6, which I kind of thought maybe they were going to do that, but that doesn't make sense either in this scenario. So that's the only way it makes sense is to be a checkbox option. So I think you're right on the money on that. Honestly, that's my opinion.
So that is a great point though with the added weight. So we know obviously the E-Ray hybrid motor setup adds roughly 300 pounds to the weight of the car, which is not, it's not huge, but it's not nothing either. So we're adding that weight to the ZR1 that already weighs a little bit more than the Z06. So you're well into the 4,000 pound territory at that point. So it is odd that they're testing it at the Nürburgring knowing that. Now there is another option here that Brandon is actually the one, or no, it wasn't Brandon. It was Jeremy 2020 Matrix 8 that was actually the first one to mention this to me. Was, is it possible that maybe they're going to put an LT7 in this car without the turbos and then also put a hybrid motor on the front to make up the difference in power? Because you would be somewhere in the neighborhood still of about 1,000 horsepower, but in a different way. You would have obviously no turbos, and you would also have the all-wheel drive aspect to it. That would reduce cost to some degree and make it, if nothing else, make it the same price as the ZR1, and then it could be its own car. But there's a couple reasons why I don't see that being the case. And the biggest one is, how do you come out with a Zora with the front hybrid setup without turbos on a ZR1 engine, but have it look identical to the ZR1? Because the car we're seeing testing over at the Nürburgring looks identical to the ZR1 with a ZTK package. There's literally no difference. It's the same wheels, the same aero package, everything's the same. That's why I'm pretty sure what they're testing there is a ZR1 with a hybrid setup in the front, thus being a Zora.
Now, what they could do if they wanted to, if Chevrolet was smart about this, they could actually take that further later on. They could make it a Grand Sport or whatever they wanted to call it, but they could actually do that. But I agree with what you're saying with the side inlets where the air comes in. It's not going to be an LT6 unless they change the body panels and made it look different. So the fact that it doesn't look different,
Right.
kind of I think rules that out. But
Right.
moving forward, that's a great idea for a Grand Sport or some other model that they want to bring in, because I think that would be attractive to buyers because you take the 200 pounds that you add for the turbos and everything else, like that's roughly, it's 175, 180, 200 pounds roughly. If you take that away, right now you're looking at a 4,200 pound car. That drops it down to 4,000, which a max option car right now, even on a Z06, if it's a hardtop convertible, that puts it around that weight range. So around a track, that might be something very attractive to people, I feel like. So
Yeah.
I think it's an option moving forward, but that's not what we're looking at here, I don't think.
No, I don't think so either. Guys, before we continue though, we got 180 people watching and 70 thumbs up. Smash the thumbs up if you can, guys. Let's get to 100 by 8 o'clock, which is 8 minutes from now. We still have a couple other pieces of information to talk about with the ZR1 and the Zora. And yeah, let's hit that thumbs up. It really helps the channel, guys. Really, really helps out. So smash the thumbs up. Let's get to 100 in the next couple minutes. Um, but what we're talking about as of right now, if you guys are just joining, is the ZR1 or the Zora car that is testing over at the Nürburgring. We have a couple pictures here suggesting that the Zora car is obviously separate from the ZR1 because the ZR1 is over there, the top right of the picture here, without camo on, whereas the Zora cars are all still camoed. They still are hiding something under that camo. In this picture, all the hatches are popped, and for some reason, whenever these pictures are taken, it's always these spy photos that look like they're taken with a camera from the 90s. I don't understand it because it's like if you used a high
Yeah.
resolution camera, I'd be able to zoom in on that and I'd be able to tell you exactly what engine's in that car. But for some reason, this person who takes these spy shots that look fantastic everywhere else, but in here, it looks like it was taken with a cell phone from the 90s. So I feel like they're doing this on purpose. So it builds all this, mystique around the car, but I can see side mounted throttle bodies on that Zora nearest the camera. So I really do believe we're looking at a ZR1 with a Zora performance check option box. And it makes sense for a couple reasons. The biggest one is that Tad said the ZR1 was going to be the most expensive C8 Corvette in the lineup. And unless he flat out lied, which he has never lied about things, but he's bypassed certain questions and whatnot to not have to lie. So I'm pretty sure it's legit. The ZR1 is the most expensive, which means the ZR1 or the Zora's got to be a check option.
And also, too, that kind of backs that up, I think. So they're competing against the SF90, right?
Right.
So you've got a car that's 3,600 pounds, that has roughly 1,000 horsepower, three electric motors. Like that car in itself, in order to be able to be competitive with a 3,600 pound car that has 1,000 horsepower, you're looking at a minimum 500 more pounds of weight. So you've got to overcome that. And so, in order to do that, you're looking at 100 pounds is a tenth, basically. Every 100 pounds you add to a car, you're losing a tenth in acceleration or whatnot. And that's not even including what you have to do to go around a track. So for them to do that, they would need at least 1,200 horsepower, in my
Yeah.
opinion, to be able to compete with the
Yeah.
SF90 at the current weight. So it can't be a LT6. Like that just kind of rules it out, because if that's the case, it's not going to compete with, it's going to be beaten by an SF90. If they want to beat an
Yeah.
SF90, that's what they're going to need to do it.
Well,
And even then, you still got the brake problem, right? Like you still got the
yeah.
same brakes
Yeah.
that are pulling that extra weight around. What's that going to do? I don't know.
So originally, when Chevy was testing the C8 Z06, they were benchmarking it against a Ferrari 458, and I think there was a Ferrari 488 there as well. When they benchmark against these cars, they don't want them to just match the performance. They want them to beat those cars. So
Mm.
whenever we saw the Zoras not too long ago testing with the SF90s, we're not looking at a Zora car that's going to match the performance uh, of a SF90. We're looking at a Zora car that's going to exceed it. And there was an article that just came out, and I can't find it now. I think it was from Motor Trend, that was saying that the Corvette ZR1 rated at 1,064 horsepower might actually not be accurate. The car may actually launch with more horsepower than that. Now, I'm not talking about an excessive amount more. There's a couple different sources saying that it's going to be right around 1,100 instead. So you're talking about an extra, maybe 40 more horsepower. My point is, though, is that the car, and we've talked about this before, the ZR1 is not that ready for launch yet. Like the numbers that they're giving us are not in stone yet, which is why I said I feel like the 0 to 60 time hasn't been given to us yet because they don't know. The quarter mile time that was just recently given to us, I think is going to change. I think it's going to drop a little bit. They said 9.7. I think it's going to be closer to like 9.5. If the horsepower isn't even solidified yet, then these numbers are definitely not solidified yet. Now, the other thing that is directly affecting the ability to give us a really good number on 0 to 60 and quarter mile time is the traction. So the ZR1 is obviously rear wheel drive. GM has recently just come out and said that they are actually working on a new tire compound for the Z06 and ZR1. So new tire compounds mean they are working on traction. They need this thing to get better traction. So again, over at the Mid-Engine Corvette forum, we can actually see here that there are improved tires incoming for the Z06 and obviously the ZR1 as well. So it says specifically that the tire is being made for the ZR1, but it's obviously going to come to the Z06 as well. And you can see the differences here with the Sport 4S tires and the Cup 2Rs. Both of them are being updated for better traction. If you guys didn't know this, the Michelin tires that come on the Z06 or the Corvettes in general for at least the last couple of generations are developed specifically for the Corvette. The tire that we have in the Pilot Sport 4S is not the same tire that you'll find in the Sport 4S on a Porsche. It's slightly different. GM makes it specific for the Corvette. So when they make these little updates to them, there's a reason for it. They're not just doing it for their health. They're making better traction, better water dispersion, whatever the case may be. They're making a difference on these tires, and it's going to make a big difference for traction most likely. So again, they can't have a finalized number on any of this stuff until they figure out what tire they're using, till they figure out how much horsepower they're putting down, till they figure out the tuning of this car. Then I saw it pop up in the comment section a couple times about the E-Ray or the hybrid front motor and whether or not I think it might be a little bit different than the E-Rays. I have heard that thrown around as a rumor as well, where maybe instead of the E-Rays 160 horsepower, maybe we get one that's 200 horsepower. So very similar setup, but maybe with a slight more bit of power, whatever the case may be. Again, we don't know the power, so we can't put down the numbers. If GM does that, we'll say the ZR1 is actually going to be rated at closer to 1100 with a 200 additional horsepower front hybrid motor. Now we're in the 1300 horsepower range with all-wheel drive. So now all of a sudden traction is not as bad. I don't know.
I don't,
It all
only
makes
thing is,
sense.
well, Bill Miller made a good point. With the traction management system in first and second gear, if they do, I think they're going to, from a cost perspective, it makes more sense for them to put the E-Ray front motor, keep everything the same. That extra 160 horsepower, you get that extra torque. I think it's like 200 torque, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
But you're getting that in first and second gear, which is usable. And they're trying to get that 2.0 second 0 to 60 that the SF90 does, right? So in order to get that, the only way they do that is obviously with the all-wheel drive setup. And I think they get that number if they have just basically, they don't have to torque manage it as much, and they get the E-Ray front driveline. Because if you have 1,000 horsepower motor now in the back, and then you have the E-Ray's front driveline, if they can't get 2 seconds, then I feel like it's got to be damn close to it, right? Like that's what my thoughts are.
Yeah. And honestly, at the Corvettes at Carlisle show, I was told by one of the engineers there not to expect a 0 to 60 time much better than the Z06s for the ZR1. And it's because of how much torque management is going to be done throughout the first 2 to 3 gears, because that's when your 0 to 60 is happening. So you're not really going to feel a blast of extra horsepower over the Z06 for the first probably 60 to 80 miles an hour. It's afterwards where you'll see the huge difference in all that extra power. But real quick, I want to mention, guys, looks like Professor Corvette just joined the memberships of this channel. Again, guys, I do have the memberships going on if you want to check them out. In the description down below, I think it starts at $4.99 a month. Nothing huge, but it's going to give you a little bit of early access to some stuff, and it helps out the channel. So if you want to check that out, check out the description along with the NCM insurance and the chance to win a C8 ZR1 before it's even out. I think that'd be pretty cool. Thank you, Professor Corvette, for supporting the channel. Always appreciate it. Looks like we are at 103 thumbs ups, guys. Let's rock those thumbs ups. Let's get to 200 by 8:30. That's always the goal. 100 by 8 and then 200 by 8:30. But yeah, so I see a couple people saying, Professor Corvette says, I just hope Zora gets crab walk capability. I don't think that would happen because of how wide these tires are. It's unlikely that would be the case. But I love the new emoji there. I think that's so cool. Yeah. Michelin does specific tires. I know, but I'm just letting people know that it is something done for the Corvette here as well. GM's not going for drag racing times with these cars. No, they're not. But it's funny because as they don't go for that, even with the C8 Z06, I remember whenever that car first came out, They're not going for drag numbers necessarily, but they end up getting them because it's a byproduct of making a freaking awesome car. Yeah, you have
Yeah.
a track focused car, but the thing's also really fast, so it's going to do pretty well at the drag strip too. I remember whenever the Z06 came out and it was cracking off like 10 fives, like it was no big deal. I was like, all right. I mean, that's not what it's built for, but okay.
Well, Justin, so say it has that checkbox. Are you going to check that box at 20 grand?
No,
Are you going to check it at 10 grand?
maybe.
Okay, so I guess there's a price point where you would check it.
Yeah.
So to me, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of one of those things where do you want that extra weight, and how important is it to have the down low
I mean,
acceleration?
that would definitely be a conversation once I have the information more so than just if we're just speculating price wise. But if I see the car testing with the Zora package and without, and the difference in 0 to 60 time is like half a second to a full second, and it adds 300 more pounds, but it also adds a lot more controllability at high speed. You know, whatever the case may be. If it's worth it, I probably wouldn't pay more than 10 to 15 for it though. Price is really going to dictate a lot with the ZR1 for me.
Okay, let me ask you this then. So, which one do you think is going to get the better Nurburgring time? I
The
think it's going to be the
ZR1.
ZR1, and it's
Yeah.
not going to be the Zora. I think the Zora is going to be
The
slower. That's my
the
opinion.
the way that the Nürburgring is set up, it does not uh it's not going to favor a car with better traction as much as it's going to favor the car that's able to get to the high speed fast. And I think the extra 300 pounds is going to limit that ability with the ZR1 Zora versus just the rear wheel drive ZR1, especially in the second lap where they're already moving and taking off's not a big deal. You know what I mean? So I got a comment here. It looks like Bill Detcher. He just joined as a member as well, guys. That's awesome. Thank you, Bill. I appreciate you guys. And it's going to give you a couple cool emojis, and it's going to give you early access to some of the community tab stuff. So I appreciate you guys supporting the channel. You guys are awesome. TechSpeed donates $20 to the channel. Thank you, TechSpeed. He's also a member. He says, "Hey, Justin, Brandon, keep it rolling." Thanks, man. Really appreciate the support. You guys are awesome. I do want to comment on something though. I just got a text message. It's kind of weird that it came through my phone, but I'm glad it did. From Corey over at Paragon Performance. He says he does. I don't know if you saw our comment or not, but there is a high rumor that the C8 Grand Sport is going to go back to an LS engine.
What?
Yeah, that's
You
actually kind of
joking?
cool. No, I don't
Huh?
know. I don't. He said it's a rumor, so
No.
you
LS
know,
is gone. That's old. You got direct injection. That's not direct injection is the new thing. Better torque, less displacement.
I got to see if I can
It's
find this comment.
it's not going LS. That's no. There's no way.
Imagine that a
Uh,
C8 Corvette Grand Sport with an LS7 in it. Tell
well,
me something that's better. And you know what? Oh my god. So
a Grand Sport than LC6. That's better.
right off the bat though, the Grand Sport original rumors I was hearing about a Grand Sport were rumoring that the power of the engine was going to be a little over 500 horsepower. It was going to be right around the same as the Stingray, but slightly higher. That's LS7 territory. That's 505 right there. Bam. There's your engine.
Well, I mean, if
How
they did it
crazy
up,
would that be?
well, I tell you what, even crazier, if they did something like what Pikes is doing, Pikes Performance, he's doing the LT2, but basically like a 427 version and doing a flat plane crank. And so a flat plane crank LT, now that'd be even crazier. But, that's kind of a one off thing that he's doing. And actually, I'm not 100% positive he's doing a 427. I just know it's an LT2 that he's doing a flat plane crank on. So, but I don't think they've actually even tested it or anything like that. It's all just pre production. But
I'm gonna get. I gotta get. Uh,
But I do see though, as far as the Grand Sport, I could see that being a thing, like what we talked about earlier about being the LT6 plus the E-Ray front driveline. That makes
yeah.
more sense. That keeps 800 horsepower. You
Well,
drop the 200 pounds off. The weight's around the same.
the
You're
thing
getting
is
the
with
4,000.
one of the rumors was with the Zora is that it could possibly be an LT6 with the E-Ray front drive motor, but this picture that we were sharing a little bit ago kind of debunks that with the side throttle bodies that you can see in the picture. So it's definitely not an LT6 engine in the Zora, at least. if they wanted to do something like that with the Grand Sport, it's unlikely that the Grand Sport has never been more horsepower than the Z06. So it doesn't make sense that the Grand Sport would come out with an LT6 and a hybrid front drive or anything like that, because that puts it over the Z06 in terms of horsepower. But a Grand Sport with an LS7, it puts it over the Stingray by just a hair, but it's still under the Z06. I don't know. I mean, I don't really necessarily believe it, but
Now, would I want that? Absolutely. Like,
it
yeah, hell
sounds
yeah,
cool.
bring it
Yeah.
on. Like, I'd be all about it. But it doesn't make sense because the LT2 was that's what kind of supplanted it. You kind of got the same at 6.2 liters, you got the same torque as the 7 liter. So it was the whole point of the direct injection part. It wouldn't make sense to me. But would I like it? Hell yeah. Like, from a car guy, I would be all about it. That would make perfect sense.
Thanks for tuning in, General. Take it easy, man.
Be an LT version of the LS7.
That would be interesting, and that could
Yeah.
absolutely happen, because the big thing is just like you said, the direct injection part of these engines, they're here, it's here to stay, and it's mostly an EPA thing. Like, we can't be putting out 7-liter LS3s anymore. I don't think the EPA is going to love that, but I could see a 7-liter LT3 built off of the LS7 with more up to date, direct injection and stuff like that.
And that motor should make around, get close to 600 horsepower, naturally aspirated with this.
The original rumor was that it was going to be an engine with between 500 and 530 horsepower. It was going to be a slight bump over the Stingray, but nothing crazy. Red C8 Z06 says Grand Sport will be a 26. So if it comes out as a 26, then maybe the Zora model comes out as a 27. And then at least then it makes sense that the Zora is still the end game. Maybe the 27 ZR1s will get the Zora checkbox, assuming that's what it is. Yeah, 7-liter won't pass emissions. It probably wouldn't, but GM has done a lot of crazy stuff to get around emissions. I thought the LT6 was going to have an issue with emissions initially too, and they didn't. So,
Either way, either way, it's good for all of us, right?
oh
Like,
yeah,
all these extra
absolutely.
models. I mean, the Zora, whether the Grand Sport comes out, which I think there would be a bad decision on GM's part not to do something with that nameplate. They've got to do something,
I agree.
because that car sells so well, especially with the C7
Yeah.
or even the C6. So I feel like they have to bring it out in some form or fashion. But to what that may look like, I don't know.
Originally, on the original leaked document talking about the performance variants, the Grand Sport was on there with the E-Ray. Then it came out later that the E-Ray was supposedly replacing the Grand Sport. So then that leaked document got altered a little bit. But initially the Grand Sport was on there with the E-Ray. So I would imagine we probably will get a Grand Sport as well. But what it's going to be exactly, who knows? Um, let's see. We got about 180 people watching, 120 thumbs ups, guys. Smash the thumbs ups. Let's get to 200 by 8:30. That's about 18 minutes from now. So actually, we got more like 20 minutes to do it. So smash that thumbs up, guys. And yeah, Red C8 Z06 has a great point here that the 2026 is also the supposed remodel or redo of the interior. If they refresh the interior in 26, it would make sense that a new model comes in 26 as well. So maybe that could be the Grand Sport.
Do you think you'd want to upgrade if the interior is like, if it's just an interior change? Say it's just the interior looks light years better. It's got some extra features that are really cool. Do you think you'd want to upgrade your car just for interior upgrades?
Um, I no, not if I was just getting another Z06, but if I was getting, like, let's say that that's the first year that I could realistically get a ZR1, that would be a selling point to it as well. But no, I would not just upgrade my car just for the interior, especially since I have a pretty good feeling the interior update is literally just going to be the speedometer and infotainment system, that they're going to use that kind of curved screen from the Escalade, something like that. It's going to be all one screen like that. I think that's going to be the majority of the upgrade or the refresh. So I don't really care that much about that. I
Yeah.
personally really like the 2023 before they switched to the Google setup. I like the setup there.
Now I would upgrade for exotic colors. They come out with all exotic colors, and they really change the whole palette for the colors. That would be something that would get me not so much as the interior, but more the exterior.
Well, I think that Hysteria Purple with the habanero interior, I think that's a pretty exotic look.
Yeah,
That's
I agree.
possibly one of the most exotic looks on the C8 right now.
I wonder how that's going to sell. Do you think it's going to sell kind of like the cacti? You don't think it'll get numbers like that, or is it going to be a hot commodity?
No, I think they're gonna it's gonna be a hair better than Cacti. It's probably gonna be one from the bottom, but it's still not gonna be a real great seller because
Oh man,
they didn't commit. And that's the thing is like if they would have committed to purple, it probably would have done better. But it's like they half committed, so it's like you know what they say about half measures.
yeah.
Switch Lane says that the new dash was supposed to happen every year for the last few years. LOL. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's literally been a rumor that it was coming since 23, and here we are.
I mean, I feel like the only thing that I would say about the interior of the C8, the only thing that I think is a negative, is the screen. Just coming from other cars that have far superior like tech stuff. That screen is small. They got to do something about. I mean, that little, especially on the 24s where you have the inch taken away on the top and the side. They got to make it a little bit bigger infotainment. I do think it's got to be bigger in order to kind of keep up with keep it modern looking and keep it refreshed. So I do think they've got to change that. So it's got to be coming.
Yeah.
So, at what point are we going to lose the internal combustion engine in the Corvette? You think the C9 is it's gone?
So initially, we had speculated about how I thought maybe the Zora model was going to be a full electric. And at one point, if you guys remember, roughly a year ago, GM's push for full electric was really in full swing. Like they wanted full electric cars. I think it was 2030. All of their cars were going to be full electric. So I had speculated that the Zora might be a full electric vehicle. It was roughly six 6 months, maybe 8 months ago that every car company out there started to feel the push of, hey, people aren't really buying into these electric cars. Maybe we should step down from this a little bit. And then all of a sudden, a lot of these car manufacturers were saying, they still want to do electric cars, but they're not going to push all of their automobiles in their lineup into electric. So when that happened, I think some things changed. And for the Zora specifically, I think that's when a lot of this stuff changed. Before that changed, I would have put money on the fact that the C9 was going to be full electric. But now with that change, I think the C9 will be fully internal combustion. I think the C9 Z06 will likely be a hybrid. And then the C9 ZR1 and up will be fully electric.
I think the C9 is going to be hybrid, like the base. Everything from this point moving forward on the C9 will be at a minimum hybrid, and then from there it's just going to be levels of the hybrid and maybe a full electric version somewhere thrown into that.
So
That's what I
the
think.
only thing to keep in mind, and the only reason why I would kind of agree with that is because of what Lamborghini's doing now with their new Huracan replacement. It's a hybrid. And it seems like if you want to go full performance, you go hybrid. But the biggest thing to remember with hybrid is the weight. And Chevy already is having a little bit of an issue keeping the weight of the Corvette under control. And I mean, if it's a hybrid car, I don't think you can do, you can't have a 4,000 pound hybrid performance car. I think it's too heavy. And for Chevy to really start knocking that weight down, you're talking about a lot of money because you're talking about carbon tubs and just things that are going to reduce weight and they're expensive.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And that's
It'll be
true too,
interesting to
though.
see.
Tech Speed says the infrastructure is not there for full electric, and it really isn't. And this is
No.
one of the other reasons why a lot of people aren't fully adopting full electric vehicles because they see the writing on the wall with places like when California and Texas had their issues with the really hot summers and they were being told to not turn on their or not to charge their cars because it was overloading the entire infrastructure with everybody's air conditioning on too. If you literally can't drive your car because you can't charge it because everybody's using their air conditioners, that's a problem. That's obviously an issue. So that's something that kind of factors in here too. But eventually fully electric cars are going to be what exists eventually. Now, I mean, whether that's 5 years from now or 100 years from now, all that's going to be around is electric cars. So,
I
like it or not, it is our future.
I will say this. Do you think Stellantis is going to go bankrupt in the next couple of years?
I'll tell you what, they're making a real good argument for themselves on that front. I'll be honest with you. I have not seen an automotive company make more poor decisions in such a tight range of time. Like they just keep messing things up.
Well, how long before that CEO gets fired? He has
Yeah,
like he probably has a
he's
shelf life of a year before he's fired, right? Like
I would hope it's not even that long because
the
somebody's
Charger's going to
making
be
some dumb.
abysmal.
Yeah,
Uh, I mean, the trucks are pretty decent. All the reviews that I'm hearing about that Hurricane Turbo V6 seem to be pretty good, but that's not electric, right? Like, but the Chargers, I just have a feeling it's just going to be that price point, 70K,
yeah.
60K. It's just gonna.
Well, that's the thing. Is
Uh,
like people feel like you're getting something more premium whenever you buy. Like whenever the TRX was out, and you could go buy a TRX for, in the beginning, it was roughly $100,000. You're getting a fully loaded truck with a big V8 engine, big supercharger, 700 horsepower. Like you feel like you're buying a premium vehicle. Now they make that basically the same truck with the Hurricane engine, less horsepower, and it's roughly the same cost. And it's like, you just don't, it just doesn't feel as premium if it's not a big V8 with a supercharger. It's like, yeah, okay, this the V6 with the turbos, it's still putting out decent power, but it's not putting out 702, and it has no V8 sound. It's just it's like a subconscious thing that if I'm not getting a V8, what am I really paying for?
yeah, that's a good point.
But yeah, somebody said Glass City Car Nerd. What's up, Jamie? He says rumor is that Toyota is coming out with a Celica and an MR2, 450 horsepower, 2-liter turbo, all-wheel drive, and no hybrid or electric. That is really awesome, and I've heard that same rumor. And I'll tell you what, growing up, the Celicas and the MR2s were some of my favorite cars from Toyota, outside of course the Supra. And if they do that car right, that could be an absolute fantastic automobile. Now, four cylinders, in my personal opinion, it's very rare that you see a V6 that has the performance that it should. So you can go with a 4-cylinder with a turbo or a V8 with a supercharger typically that's really going to give you the performance you want. So if they brought out a Celica or the MR2 with a 4-cylinder with a nice size turbo on it, putting out 500 horsepower out of, nice setup engine that is not only going to be fuel efficient, but it's going to be lighter weight than a V8. So now you can potentially build a car that's pretty lightweight, pretty fast, rear wheel drive, and a contender. If Toyota does it right, that could be a really awesome car.
Well, why did Nissan give up on the GTR? I don't understand. It was called literally like Godzilla when it came out, like in '09 or whenever that was.
Yep.
It beat everything. I mean, the electronic nannies, and it's just like they just rode that platform for now. What has it been like 15 years
It's
now?
been a long time.
And
Yep.
tiny little modifications. Like, why did they give up? They were ahead of the game, and then they just
I
like
don't
said,
think
"Fuck
that
it,
they
we're
gave
done."
up. They're still making it. It's just
But it's
they
not competitive
I
anymore.
was gonna say they
I
have
mean,
stopped improving it. Like every year they bring
yeah,
it out, it's like they take the fog light and move it 2 inches to the right or something, and it's like brand new model. It like they don't change anything anymore. It's all the same engine, it's all the same drivetrain. But yeah,
yeah.
the GTR was literally was the car I wanted when it first came out. I was like, I have to have one of those. Now I see one every now and then, and I'm like, thing looks like an Altima driving down the road. Like compared to the
Yeah,
stuff that's out there now, it doesn't look great, but I mean, I'll tell you what, those things they still are pretty crazy performance. Um,
yeah.
what was it? The Alpha, I think it is. I saw one not too long ago. It was in my hometown. Dude had it just modded to the moon and back, and it was like a crazy amount of horsepower reliably out of that engine. Now that is one of the exceptions to the rule about my V6 thing not really being a. There's a couple
Oh,
exceptions out
yeah.
there, but
But that's a Ferrari designed
yeah,
V6,
yeah,
right?
that's
Like,
it.
it's
And
just
not
2
only
cylinders
that,
chopped off.
I had a 370Z Nismo that had a very similar engine in it, and not only does it that didn't have turbos or anything on it, so it wasn't a great performance engine, but it had one of the best sounds I've ever heard out of a V6. Like V6s typically sound like trash, but the
Yeah.
GTR and the 370Z, they sound really good for a V6.
Well, the looks wise, the 370 is just a good looking. Not so much, the new ones not as much as I think the older ones were better looking cars, but
Hmm. Is that no? Who somebody said that if you zoom in on the stars, they're made out of tiny V8s. Professor Corvette. What? I'm not sure what you're looking at on that ZR1 picture because it's definitely not on that. Unless he's joking, I don't know. But anyway, so let's talk a little bit more about what's happening here with the Zora. Again, if you guys are just tuning in, smash the thumbs up button, guys. Let's try to hit 200. We got almost 200 people in here watching. Let's hit those 200 thumbs ups. Smash the thumbs up. But if you just tuned in, we have seen that the uh, Corvette's going to be bringing in some improved tire compound for the ZR1 and will eventually make its way to the Z06. This is an article over at the Mid-Engine Corvette forum where they're talking about the updated tire specs. So they're obviously focusing on traction control or traction with both of these cars because it's going to be an issue, and it is an issue with the Z06 as well. But outside of that, we also have some pictures of the ZR1 over at the Nürburgring with an absolutely ridiculously cool vinyl decal on the hood. I love that so much. But we also have some Zoras in the background that have shown a clearer picture of what engine we're going to be getting in there, and it looks a lot like it's likely to be the LT7 as well. So it's probably going to be a performance checkbox for the ZR1 to get a Zora. You just place a check there, pay an extra probably 20 grand, and now you have a hybrid setup as well. Um, Only other thing I wanted to talk about really, well, there's two more things. There are some constraints for September. So if you guys are looking to order a Z06, E-Ray, or Stingray, these are the constraints you can be ready to deal with. And they're not great. They're not great constraints. So for the Stingray, you're not getting any Sebring orange, competition yellows on constraint, habanero interiors, no 1LT trim packages, which is interesting. And
huh?
the gloss black wheels are on constraint. Like, how do you have a constraint on black?
Well, even the 1LT, that sounds like a business decision to me. Like, right?
100%. I thought the same thing because the 1LT is the one they make the least amount of money on. So they want to sell you those 3LT interiors.
Yeah, that sounds fishy.
Yeah.
Uh,
So scrolling down from there, though, we got the E-Ray uh, constraints. Same thing. No Sebring orange, no competition yellow, no habanero interiors, and no carbon fiber ground effects. So if you guys thought that the carbon fiber shortage with GM was over, think again. And they'll have you believe GM talked a lot about it at Carlisle about how oh, we can't have any constraints for carbon fiber on the ZR1 because the ZR1 comes standard with this carbon fiber. They can't even build the carbon fiber for the E-Rays, and we're going to see here in a second the Z06. The Z06 still has a Z07 constraint. It's been built for almost what over 2 years now at this point, and it's still a constraint for Z07. So we'll scroll down and show you the Z06 stuff here. Sebring orange, competition yellow, habanero interiors, the Z07 high wing, the carbon fiber ground effects, carbon ceramic brakes, which is interesting, and again the black spider wheels. So how is black on constraint? I don't know, but it's interesting that the Z06 has a constraint on the carbon ceramic brakes, but the E-Ray doesn't.
yeah, that
Do
they're
they?
using them all for the E-Ray.
Yeah,
That's what it sounds
that must
like.
be it because the E-Ray does not have a different compound on those rotors that I know of. I'm pretty sure it's the exact same rotor. Now the ZR1 has a different compound than the Z06 from what I've seen.
Kind of going back to that on the Zora, I mean, add 300 pounds and stop with the same brakes the ZR1 has.
Right.
That's a lot extra.
Now, to some degree, I would imagine that the ZR1 brakes are probably oversized for the car. So they might have set it up knowing that could be a potential problem in the future. So they gave it a bigger because I think it was you whenever the ZR1 first came out, you said, "Hey, the ZR1 has larger rotors than the Z06," and I said, "No, it doesn't. They're
Yeah,
the same size." But
yeah.
GM kept saying that they're larger, but they're the same. And then they clarified later they're not larger, they're thicker. So the disc is actually thicker than they are on the Z06. That I mean the power is obviously massive, but they probably planned this in advance, obviously.
Yeah.
if that
Yeah.
is going to be the case. But yeah, Lego D17 says, how can they still have issues getting in the Z07 package? Like, how is that still a problem? I have no idea, but this is going to be the foreseeable future with the GM, with Corvettes specifically. Like, they're just, carbon fiber is hard for them to get. And then when they do get it, if you guys haven't seen the video I put out yesterday of Supercar Saturday, about halfway through, I'm showing someone's car that has carbon fiber on the engine bay. And the carbon fiber in the engine bay is from a third party carbon fiber supplier. And then GM's carbon fiber triangular pieces that are the engine appearance package, GM's carbon in there is so brown compared to the gray carbon fiber of the aftermarket stuff. It looks horrible. Like, I don't know how GM, number one, they have a problem with getting the carbon, but then when they do get it, it's so brown that it looks horrible. I'm gonna see if I can
Well,
pull it up real
was that
quick.
the torch? I'm trying to remember which car was that. The Torch Red Z06? Which one was that?
No, that was the yellow, Accelerate Yellow Stingray.
Oh, okay, okay. That Torch Red was nice. The one with the clear tails. That's
Yeah, it
probably my
was cool.
favorite
It
car that
was.
you had on there.
Yeah, I know him well. I've seen him at the show a couple times. Let's see. John Perkins, are you a hell driver, Amber? Yeah, you should see her hammer the throttle on my TRX when she leaves the driveway. It's like I would that girl. She's got a lead foot. Yeah, guys,
What do
hit
you
the
get miles per gallon out of your TRX? I'm just curious.
I'm averaging, I think it was 9.8.
Okay, about the same.
Yeah.
But I'm on E85, so that actually means I'm getting better gas mileage.
Yeah, you're getting, if you're getting 9.8, then I'm doing something really wrong. I'm on
Actually, I
93.
think it's like 90 or something, but
Oh
on
yeah.
E85, that's not too
Yeah.
bad.
Guys, smash the thumbs up button. Let's get to the 200 if we can. We're at 153 currently. Let's hit that 200 number. Um, what's going on with the Lyric Professor Corvette? I'm gonna be making a video about that here pretty soon, probably this upcoming week if I can. So stay tuned for that. John Perkins says the carbon fiber isn't brown enough for GM. Tech Speed says my carbon fiber roof is brown. My carbon fiber level 2 is gray. Go figure. And that's the thing, is like, it has to be the UV protectant that they're putting in the carbon fiber gel coat or clear coat, because the interior carbon fiber that GM uses isn't bad. It looks good. So they're not putting the same UV protectant in that interior package. That has to be what's causing that browning. But as you have it, like when you buy the car brand new, you can tell it has a brown tinge, but as time goes on, that brown gets worse and worse and worse and worse. I'm gonna see real quick here if I can pull it up on my channel if you guys haven't seen this video yet. I just want to see if I can pull up the picture really quick.
Did you compare your Z07 spoilers between the Segala?
Press and play.
To see, was there any browning over time on the Segala that you had?
No, and that's the thing, is like, I would have put money on the fact that if one of them was gonna brown, it would have been that. But nope, it was perfectly gray to the day I swapped it out.
Huh.
All right,
I'm trying to think if I've seen the browning on the. I feel like I have, even on the Z07 spoilers a little bit. The ones that have been out a little bit
yeah.
more.
Here it is though, guys. So if you're really curious how the browning looks compared to like gray aftermarket carbon, here it is. Look how bad this is. You can see that gray carbon around, and then the triangular piece of the. See if I can get, if it gets it any better than that. How's that look?
Do you know
Yeah,
you're getting a Urus, a Lamborghini? Did you know that, Justin?
I did not. That's news to me.
Amber's telling. That's what Amber's telling everybody.
Look at that brown though. Can you see that?
Yeah,
Look how
yeah,
brown that is. I mean, that
yeah.
that's
It's
that's
pretty.
one of the worst examples of that I've seen.
But there's a lot of heat under the hood. Do you think it could be just the heat under the hood doing
No,
that more
no,
aggressively, or you think it's like that from get go?
no. It gets worse. So the heat might activate it or something, but it's like that pretty much from the day you buy it. It's brown, but it does get worse. Justin's gonna buy me, yeah. Chopper Larry, I've had aftermarket carbon fiber on a lot of my cars for years, and it's never discolored. So it's definitely a GM thing. Mark Surge, this is a great question. He says, "Hey Justin, would you recommend getting a Z06 without the Z07 package and getting the Z07 carbon fiber second hand, or trying to get it directly from Chevy with the 10% stiffer suspension?" Um, if money is no issue, I would have bought the Z07 package car and immediately swapped all of the carbon for an aftermarket carbon. The stuff from Racing Sport Concepts is basically OEM quality, and it's never going to turn brown. So I would swap it all out with that, but I would like to have that 10% stiffer suspension. Now, if money is kind of tight, I would just buy a Z06 and add the Z07 stuff afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, if I had,
Um,
in hindsight, if I could do it over again, I would have. That's what I would have done. It was on constraint at the
yep.
time, but I
Oh,
wish I'd have waited.
it still is, Brandon. So it's
Yeah,
like
true.
it doesn't matter if you wait or not, you can't get the freaking thing. Switch Lane says, pretty sure the Segala wing is fiberglass wrapped with a CF carbon fiber weave overlay. That's why it's much heavier than the outright C carbon fiber Z07 style wings. You're right. Yeah. So whenever I swapped it out for the Racing Sport Concepts, there was a 5 pound difference between the two. And it's because Segala's was loaded with fiberglass and resin, whereas the Racing Sport Concepts is made strictly with carbon fiber. So there is a difference in weight, there's a difference in quality, there's a difference in price. That's the big thing. If you want good style, good quality, decent quality, you'll get Segala. If you want great quality, you're going to get RSC, but you're going to pay for the difference. Yeah, Lego said I've seen it and it does look very brown after a while. Yeah, it does, unfortunately. NBA Live says he would make GM replace the brown carbon panels. Yeah, you could, but they're going to replace it with another panel that's also going to brown.
Yeah.
Isn't that
That's,
something? Like it's
yeah.
so
I
dumb.
mean, you're just giving a little more time for your
Yeah,
browning, I
yeah, you're
guess.
just restarting the clock, but it's going to happen again.
Yeah.
So one last thing I wanted to mention, and this is actually kind of cool. Brandon, you had shown some interest in this. So apparently there's a new option coming for the car, and it is called the new suede trim panels. So if you wanted to do this with your car, you can now do this as you're building the C8 Corvette. You can add these new suede trim panels in the frunk and the trunk. Brandon, I know you had shown interest in this, and I think it was actually Tech Speed that shared the picture. He bought this and made his trunk red. Do you remember that?
Yeah, yeah.
Now
I
you
would
can
like it.
actually you can buy that straight from GM with the red trunk and the red frunk, or tan, like the natural color. Now,
I
apparently
like
all of
that.
these are suede instead of carpet, so you can actually get it in black as well. And it's suede versus like the carpet material that's in there now. But I think a car like mine, um, where it's black exterior and then you pop the frunk and it's red, I think that would look really cool. Um, I don't know. I think it's a cool option. My only concern with it was the price. It is $1,095. Like
That's for the front and rear, or just the front one side? Is that per side, like front and back?
I think it's for both. It says
Okay.
1,095. You get an upgraded new suede trim panel kit for the trunk and trunk areas of your Stingray or Z06, but not E-Ray, to help maintain overall durability. I don't know. It says trunk and trim panel.
I
Trunk
don't
and
know. Not for
no.
$1,000.
If
Five
it's a
hundred dollars, sure.
if it's 1,000 each, no. But if it's basically 500 each, it's kind of cool. I wouldn't do it just because I think the inventory would kind of take away from it almost. So I don't know.
Ah, the red's kind of nice though on your
I
car.
know.
I
I
mean,
think
it
it
would
would be
look.
pretty cool. I would consider doing the frunk with the red, but I probably wouldn't do the trunk because the trunk's already
Yeah,
got a lot of red back there. I don't want to overdo it.
yeah.
I don't know. So that's a new option coming for the Z06 and Stingray. For some reason, it's not for the E-Ray. I have no idea why the E-Ray wouldn't get that, but apparently it's just for the Z06 and Stingray.
That's weird.
That is very weird. And it's also, it says that it's there to help overall durability. Meanwhile, I feel like if it's suede, it's going to be less durable than
Less
the metal.
durable.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at the steering wheels with the oil and
Right.
stuff, like, they degrade.
Yep.
You have to clean them and stuff. Uh,
So that's pretty much it, guys. What are your thoughts on the whole ZR1 Zora thing? Are you guys in? Actually, you know what? I'm gonna start a poll here. Let me know. I'm gonna start this poll. It's gonna be: do you think that the Zora is going to be a performance check option for the ZR1?
I know where I'm voting on that for sure. It is it is gonna be, for sure a checkbox. It's the only way it makes sense, unless Taz was lying or he was incorrect in what he said. But it's definitely it's that's the only thing that makes sense. And I'm curious what the production's gonna be on those. How many people are gonna go for that? 'Cause just look at the E-Ray. You know, I feel like, being a hot commodity, at least what we're seeing on the, not the used market, but even on the new cars, you're seeing them MSRP now, which you would not seen that with these production number with the Z06. So I feel like the demand's not quite there. Are we gonna have that for the Zora? Which I would think maybe because of the nameplate, yeah. But that being said, I think people are resistant to this hybrid setup, so I don't know. Be interesting either way.
Yep.
And just to answer Amber's question. No, I'm off tonight. It's my off week. It's every other week. So
Mark Surge says, would it be possible to buy Z07 suspension if you have a Z06? No. No, it's not something you're going to be able to do. You can't add it after the fact, basically. So the poll is up, though, guys. Let me know if you think the Zora is going to be a checkbox. I want to see. That's going to be basically the last thing we're going to be doing tonight. Definitely curious what you guys think, because I think it's going to be. Brandon kind of thinks it's going to be. And I did not see that idea anywhere out there on the internet, nor did I hear any rumors of that before we talked about it here on this channel. So we may have discovered this.
I think you're onto something there for sure. You know who we didn't see tonight? I didn't see 2020 Matrix.
No,
Jeremy.
he's on.
Is he on?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
maybe I
He
missed him.
he tuned in a little bit late, but he was on.
Oh, okay. Oh,
I
dang
don't.
it.
I honestly can't tell you the last time he missed one. He's almost always on here.
I thought when you had that car, couple of, well, I think, I can't remember which car it was. I think it was the one that had that matte wrap at the show. I thought honestly for a second there that was his car.
It does look just like his. That's why I mentioned it in the video.
With a little less red on the interior or something. I think it was a little different, but
Yeah, he has it. It's broken up a little bit more on his build, which, in my opinion, you have to do it that way. I am dying, Amber. Yep. She's like, "Are you dying?" I got something stuck in my throat. But it looks like we're roughly 80-20 on the poll here. So 80% believe it will be a checkbox. 20 says no. I don't know. For those of you still in here, smash the thumbs up button, guys. We're gonna let this poll go for another couple minutes. But in the meantime, let's show some love for those thumbs ups. Larry Anthony showed up late, but he's here. Better late than never, Larry. How you doing?
yeah, you missed it. We talked about the new tire compound, the checkbox for Zora, the new suede front and rear interior options, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, you'll definitely have to go back and rewatch it, Larry. Bill Miller says, "What? No Mountain Dew, Justin?" You know what's funny is I have one in the fridge and I absolutely forgot to bring it up here because I literally saved it for opening it up on the live tonight, and I forgot it, and I really need it right now.
Oh, hey
35 more
Justin,
thumbs ups, guys. Smash the thumbs ups.
I was telling you off the air, you know, that I did the DCC filter change actually today,
Yep.
and that made a world of difference in the trans shifting. I had 7,350 miles or something, and I mean, it feels like the transmission is brand new again. It's
Yeah.
crazy how much of a difference it
Isn't it
makes.
nuts? The first time I
It's
took it out
wild.
after changing, I was like, "Oh my god, like I got to film this." I literally had to pull out my camera and film it because it was like this thing feels brand new again.
It's
So
it's a weird thing. The shifts just feel, the only way I can describe it is just more natural. It's like they would do funny things on occasion
Mhm.
before, and now everything just feels natural and precise, and just like I remember it when I drove it from Bowling Green. That's how it feels now. So it's crazy.
Yep.
You wouldn't think that kind of a difference, but it is.
Oh, dang it. Yeah. All right. So this poll is 77-23. So 77%, 23. 77 say yes, it's going to be a performance checkbox. 23 say no. I don't know. That's a good bit of people. We'll call it 75-25. So 3/4 of you believe it is going to be a checkbox. And I honestly, I'm in there too. I think it's going to be as well. So I think that's where we're going to leave this one tonight, guys. Smash the thumbs ups. We got pretty close. We're at 170. We need 30 more thumbs ups, but I don't think we're going to make that. So smash the thumbs ups. Check out the links in the description down below for NCM insurance and the ability to win 2 different C8 ZR1s. You might as well take your shot at it. You're going to save, or you're going to get some bonus entries for doing it from the Horsepower Obsessed channel. Big thank you to Brandon for tuning in with us tonight. Thanks for showing up.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for all the support, guys. As always, you guys are awesome. We will see you guys same time, same place next Monday night.